Welcome everyone, welcome back to the MacHeads podcast. I know I've taken a break. This week we'll be discussing some of the newer releases like Doja Cat's Scarlet 2, Claude, Charli XCX's ongoing Brat saga and its 3 songs, and Camila Cabello's Hot Mess I Love It. I'm also going to talk about Olivia's deluxe Guts tracks, because why not? This is a makeup episode. We'll also, per usual, discuss some of the movies and TV that I've been watching lately, so let's just get into it. Scarlet 2, Claude. First things first, we gotta discuss Scarlet 2 Claude. I've already made a video about Doja's Scarlet, even putting it on my top albums of 2023 list, so I had to talk about its sequel, Claude. Initially named after Claude Frollo, the iconic Disney villain from The Hunchback of Notre Dame, which they should remake starring Ben Platt. I said what I said. These are 7 more tracks and it serves as a deluxe to Doja's 4th album. Despite a somewhat soft sales debut, we cannot deny that Scarlet was a success as it yielded 2 big hits, including Paint the Town Red, which has survived 34 weeks on the charts, and Agora Hills, a sleeper hit that has made it to the top 10 iconic track. All of this while being quote and unquote cancelled. Scarlet 2, unlike Scarlet 1, features collaborations, something that did not really happen because Doja was trying to prove her rap skills as a soul lyricist. I'd heard some people float Cardi B and others as features, but for now it's just A$AP Rocky and Tizo Touchdown. Still, this is a very tight collection of tracks that continue on Scarlet's themes of duality and her aggressive stances on the parasocial nature of being a musician nowadays. Acknowledge Me is a testy confessional about balancing a relationship with fame. The chorus speaks to this angst that she has over a lover that really gets under her skin. Each verse contains some pretty good lines. Verse 1 paints a picture that she's sober, but her lover's moody. She's done fighting over tabs. She doesn't want her lovers to call her Doja Cat though. She does not want to date a fan. That's what she's saying. The line name dropping Carly Rae Jepsen, who recently tried to quit sugar and failed miserably and adores Doja. She said that the tour was amazing. I thought that was a cute moment. She mentions Cardi B. I'm not sure if it's shade. I don't interpret it as shade. The second verse recounts how her lover is starting to really resent her success and her life. I'm addicted to the way that she says, quote, bitches, end quote, towards the end of the track. I feel as an opener for the deluxe, it really does set the tone. Disrespectful channels some R&B in its chorus. Doja gets to really show off her range as a singer. She's actually a really good singer. The quick verse is her bragging about her man in the smartest, cleverest ways. Flaws and all, he doesn't get jealous, and I think that's her favorite part about him. The outro has to be the best part though, where she calls out the boys, ugly, pretty, skinny, big, rich. It's a lot of fun, and I feel like it could be a great touring moment. Urge with A$AP Rocky is a feral smash. The lines about Zorro and Antonio continue Doja's habit of referencing ingeniously. The chorus is chanty, very simple. A$AP Rocky, as usual, he kills it. This blood, look orange, call him Dev Hines, had me cracking up because if you know, you know. The consistent rhyme flow and interplay proves that fundamentals triumph over flashy tricks when it comes to rapping. I feel like Doja and A$AP Rocky, they really have a good grip on maintaining a rhyme scheme and essentially riding a beat, which is all you really need to be a good rapper. Not that I would know, I'm not a good rapper. OK Loser is the most radio-friendly and catchy immediate hit. I think that the chorus is insidiously catchy. The ad-libs in it just work really well. The line, we go way, way back, I won't say okay boomer, makes it TikTok ready. It's still very Scarlet, but there's some early pop Doja to it, and Yeti Beats delivers yet another killer beat. She still manages to go off in the verses, but she keeps it brief and simple. I like the way that each of these verses flow effortlessly into the chorus. Maybe one day you'll be great and go on tour like me, hey. She knew she killed that Scarlet tour, which was one of my favorite shows from last year. I was so honored to be able to attend the show in Miami at the Kaseya Center. If you were there, let me know in the comments. If you saw the Scarlet tour, let me know what you thought of it. I liked it. It was very minimalistic, yet it gave her the chance to really bring the album to life. Mask with Tizo Touchdown is the first single off the record, and I see why she chose it. It evolves on the vibe from Agora Hills, and it has sleeper hit written on it. The chorus is pretty simple. She's telling her man that she's too grown to fight. The song's title is short for masculine, And it speaks to her having to be the man and match the aggression in the relationship. Personally, I think I'm going to be quoting, "You gave me the dick and then gave me the dick without the D," because that's just so clever. The ick. What I really like about this song is that it's about a masculine op in her life. They're starting fights on IG. They're acting like the victim, but she knows that it's all fake. Tizo's response is really cool. He responds as the man leaving the relationship, and it's interesting that he's on defense, asking for compassion, time, and touch. Him taking on the traditional feminine role is pretty sick. I do like the fact that it speaks to the duality of man and woman and the roles that we assign ourselves. Piss, however, is an absolute shitpost from its intro to the chorus saying all her diamonds look like piss. The verses roll off very smooth as she channels her inner braggart. Verse 2 is much stronger. The run from get the knee high to monkey see, so monkey do. I really love the way that she punctuates her words with the beat on this track. One thing about Doja, and what I do like about certain rappers, is that they really interplay with the instrumental. And speaking of instrumentals, Head High is the chillest track. I think the production really resembles that kind of lo-fi background music that people study to, but I think it's pretty neat. The chorus is pretty hypnotic. The verses see Doja sing, at least on the first verse. Though she raps on verse 2 where she calls out fatherless behavior, seeing people calling her spider bitch, an insult that she got for her Scarlet era, and also calling out her broke detractors. I think there's a cool self-awareness though, in that she admits that she seeks out looking for hate because she feels the weight of it all and it's hard to keep her head high, so the wordplay, as always, is great. Personally, I adore the standard version of Scarlet as is. I think as a collection of outtakes separate from it, this is a pretty solid 7.8. It's not too hooky, it's not very radio friendly, which continues the themes of the Scarlet era. There are some pretty gnarly tracks in there, but it's not a must listen unless you're a Kitten or a Doja hardcore like I am. I think OK Loser is a hit waiting to happen. I think I saw someone mention that in some territories it's a single instead of mask, and if that means that Carly Rae Jepsen gets to cameo on Doja Cat 5 because of Acknowledge Me, I'll take it. So now we're moving on to the Brat recap, because we need to talk about Charli XCX's Brat. I started this channel as an angel first and foremost before I started making content about Taylor Swift, which I love making content about her, so I've just been keeping up with Charli the entire time. Brat marks Charli's return to making club music, something that she really started with even in her younger years. She's still with Atlantic Records, which was something that I questioned when the Crash era had come to an end, but it's very clear that they're giving her the chance to do whatever she wants to do and a budget. Some people asked her to move to Dirty Hit, but I don't think Dirty Hit has the money or the capital to really allow her to do her vision. Brat is probably going to be an insanely aggressive record. The way that its cover art caused a little bit of a tiff over how low res it looked. It's this disgusting lime green square with some simple text. I think that it's really arresting and genius. Charli herself said that it was in protest of the demand to have pop stars be photographed on their covers, something that she called quote and unquote misogynistic and boring. I don't necessarily agree with those sentiments, but I do think that it's a really pointed and almost academic response to criticisms regarding the cover. She's doubled down on it. I mean, even the colored variants of this record have that album cover. The first single off the record dropped at the end of February. It's called Von Dutch. It's named after the famous trucker hat company of the aughts, the 2000s. This easy, fun-produced track is an explosive slice of synth pop that says electro clash is back in. The song's substance is really the delivery, as the track's lyrics is just Charli saying that she knows she's a gossip, but in the most assured way over exploding helium tanks and the sounds of a transformer shifting into robot form. I think that it cuts much closer to Pop 2 than Crash, which for some fans is a much needed reset. Crash was an enjoyable, smooth listening record. It did not really push the boundaries of pop. It didn't need to. I felt like it was a palate cleanser for her to return back to this kind of music. The chaotic music video depicts her fighting the paparazzi at the airport, and I think it really does make the track stronger. Very rarely do music videos detract from the art. I mean, in the case of like Katy Perry's Birthday, I thought that actually tanked that track, whereas like this music video does enhance the vision that she's trying to do. There's a really killer Addison Rae A.G. Cook remix that I honestly think elevates the original track and is much better. Addison Rae's official debut last year was stunning. I honestly, even though it was comprised of leaked tracks that have existed for almost 2 years, she has the chops. She and Charli trade lines that feel like unhinged tweets over Cook's chill yet frenetic production. Rae's now iconic ad-lib scream is going viral for good reason. I think that this is one of the few remixes that actually improve a song. Much of the times, at least in my honest opinion, remixes tend to diminish the original song or not do enough to elevate it. Another track that she teased was So I, a beautiful tribute to Sophie that I really want to listen to in its mastered form before I talk about. But I do love the reverence that Charli continues to have for Sophie, who passed a couple years ago. The most recent development on Brat is that she's released 2 surprise singles at the top of April, Club Classics and B2B. Club Classics itself is a really fun traditional, not necessarily traditional, but conventional A.G. Cook track. I think that it's the less liked track because it's very much a vibe clubby track. It's very dense sonically. There's a lot going on. The throwback to her deleted demo bounces iconic lyrics where she just wants to dance to AG and Sophie and with George are really cute. I like the callback there. I like the vocal variations on it. One observation that a friend of mine had pointed out to me is that much of Brat is style over substance as a statement and an ethos to the record versus her 2 previous records that did have somewhat of an emphasis on lyrical meaning. This is about the club, the emotions, and dancing. Club music itself doesn't tend to be the most lyrically dense or enriching genre. Instead, it really relies on the conventions of how the synth sound or how the delivery works, but Charli's still pretty well calibrated in that aspect. B2B, co-produced by the iconic Gesaffelstein, is a much more conventional track that retains Charli's iconic repetition. She says the word back 242 times. I counted it myself. I think that might be a world record. I think she should submit it to Guinness to see. Anyway, this track is about not wanting to go back to an ex and imploring him to run back to his ex. The short verse is very vulnerable, where she talks about breaking herself down and rebuilding all the time. I feel like that's a meta commentary on her own career. She doesn't want to be fearless. She just wants to get back to her old self and back on track. There's a very meta meaning to the song in that she's going back to her core as an electronic club dance artist first and foremost. I feel like a return to form has been the theme of a lot of people's records this year. Casey Musgraves has returned to sort of pure acoustic country. So on the opposite spectrum, seeing Charli do that in her own way is pretty cool. It's very early to say, but I think that Brat honestly might be a career-defining moment for Charli and the official start of her just being able to do whatever she wants with a decent budget. All the songs so far have spoken to her strengths as an artist and a tastemaker. I've given up on mainstream recognition beyond the occasional soundtrack hit like Speed Drive or Boom Clap, but her impact on the field is clearly felt. Which brings us to our next quick little segment. The most recent example of Charli's impact has to be Camila Cabello's new track with Playboi Carti, I Love It, which many immediately point out had similar production to Charli's Pop 2 and How I'm Feeling Now eras. Ironically, the producer, Eljohn, is apparently going to also be on Brat. This track has been the subject of discourse between the gays. I personally love the non sequitur yet calculated nature of the track. The lyrics themselves speak to living in the moment and speaking what's on your mind. I did not realize that the chorus itself was an interpolation of Rihanna's cockiness, I Love It. The post-chorus sampling Gucci Mane's Lemonade adds another shade of random to this pastiche of pop. And Carti's verse, I personally think, redeems the song. Even if you can't understand it, it feels like another layer to a very weird joke of a song that feels like a malicious AI trying to make pop music. If you were to ask Skynet what music sounds like in the year of our Lord 2024, this is what it would create. The music video, which contains some very random insane scenes, was really fun to set the song to. These scenes speak to the Frankenstein nature of the track. I think that it's the most innovative element of the song, which I will consider more of a buzz single than a lead. This really felt like the Zoomer version of those RAR XD posts that millennials used to do. I wouldn't really call it avant-garde, but the question regarding Camila has always been her consistent plagiarism disputes. Even as early as her first record, a few songs were called into question. The song She Loves Control apparently cribs from Waterfall by Sia, Stargate, and Pink. Here's a snippet. I personally don't really hear too much similarities. One of the few tracks that I really loved off the debut record, Into It, does have some elements that I felt were inspired by Homemade Dynamite and Sober from Melodrama. Here's a quick clip. I feel like the spacing of the track, like the instrumental, kind of feels familiar. Even Havana has some core similarities to Selena Gomez's Same Old Love, which ironically was written by Charli XCX herself. Charli herself has worked with Camila Cabello in the past on both OMG, one of the earlier singles that she did, and Senorita, one of her biggest hits, so I highly doubt that these two actually have beef. Charli XCX recorded this joking video of her some thought was shade. I personally thought of it as a wink. If anything, the most infamous example of Camila Cabello cribbing from an artist was not even a song, but rather visuals for the teaser for Romance, her second record, in which she heavily borrowed from Lana Del Rey, who went out of her way to comment on it at some point. Romance itself as an era saw outrage when Camila was clearly cribbing from Marina, even with her vocal performances for Cry For Me, or that Peruvian band that did My Oh My first allegedly. That era was really bad for her in that regard. There was also a minor controversy over very similar imagery that she may have borrowed from Caroline Polachek. But all of this withstanding, I do think that it's the nature of pop music itself that makes these assertions a little hard to make. When does imitation stop being flattering and become outright theft? Most will say that it's when the ripoff supersedes the original. In the case of I Love It, it's set for a debut in the 80s range. I don't think the general public really likes the direction. I feel like it's very niche. I am looking forward to seeing how the rest of the CXOXO record goes. That is such an unfortunate title, by the way. It's weird because Camila's debut album I really enjoyed. Romance was a little bit of a miss for me. I really actually liked Familia when she was leaning into the Latin pop. So seeing her return back to traditional pop with this record, I'm curious to see where she goes with it. And my final little section over music has to be for Guts' deluxe version, the spilled version. Guts was one of my favorite records last year, and Olivia had hidden demos of 4 different deluxe tracks on each of the vinyls. A ridiculous tactic that I do not like for sales, though she did not advertise the fact that she was doing bonus tracks. I don't mean this as shade to any particular artist. I just don't think that, this is a viable strategy. Obsessed was a fan favorite that she'd perform on tour, causing people to ask for the deluxe version and for the song on streaming, and I'm just going to briefly go over each of the deluxe tracks. Now that it's out, I have to say that Obsessed is definitely one of her staple songs. I think the music video itself sees her in a beauty pageant with bangs and up against exes of her current obsession. Each one of these exes has a unique sash, and I think that's a really good visual detail. I initially thought the music video was directed by Petra Collins, it's just someone emulating her style. Lyrically speaking, this song is brutal and honest. Per usual for Olivia, the fixation on the partner's ex is admittedly unhealthy, but very relatable. Olivia is a master at channeling anxiety and speaking to common insecurities while sounding cool in the process. There's something direct and concrete about the language she uses, using specific examples. I really do think that the lean on the punk direction for her has been working well. St. Vincent's Annie Clark co-wrote the song, which explains why it's a total earworm. I'm shocked that it was never on the standard version. Of all the bonus tracks, this should have been on there. The thing I like most about bonus tracks is that they reveal the journey that a record has gone through from its conception to its final stages. Oftentimes, bonus tracks reveal different avenues that this record could have gone. I feel like the exclusion of a track from a track listing isn't necessarily on the track's quality per se, but how well it fits the project. Guts had a very nice rock lean to it. Every song had a very aggressive tone to it. So it's no surprise that Girl I've Always Been, the short, jaunty tune that feels a little country, was left off. It's very singer, songwriter, acoustic guitar where she takes on a cute little twang and experiments with her vocal delivery. It definitely does not sound like any of the other tracks. In this track, she talks about how her fair weather friends call her out for being different, but she's still the girl she's always been. I find it to be a cute self-empowerment track. I don't see how it would fit on the standard. My personal favorite lyric has to be, and I can't say I'm a perfect 10 because Olivia, you're a gorgeous little talented queen. I admire the humility. I think it's very refreshing to see her do self-depreciative stuff, but like, queen, come on. Scared of My Guitar, I've seen so many people throw shade at for being her first ever skip, but I personally do like this track. I'm a sucker for acoustic Olivia, and I don't know, I think this song's message is pretty unique. She's scared of her guitar because she's more honest when she makes music, and she knows that she'll reveal the truth to someone that she knows is not the one. Her vocals on the bridge are immaculate, and again, I do like that this is a subversion of the traditional love song. She sees her talents as a bit of a curse. As a fellow writer, I'm not as successful as her, but oftentimes I will write something that reflects my own relationships with people, and I worry that if it ever gets out, those people will hate me. We tend to be more honest when we're in the lens of making art or just thinking that we're private. You know, a guitar is not a person. It is something that you use to really express yourself. Someone like Olivia is very journalistic with how she writes. Not necessarily in the sense of giving news, but in the sense of like underscoring her deepest feelings. Very diaristic, I think that's the better word. Stranger is why I needed to include this section for the podcast. I'd been bitten by the love bug lately, and this song captures the feelings that I have getting out of it. It's a really catchy little song about realizing how silly you are for loving someone who has essentially become a stranger for you, but someone who you know all about. The second verse is so real, all the things that she did to try to win his love, and going, she can't imagine she did all of that for just some guy. It makes me feel a little bit better about being a total corny loser sometimes. She's still very grateful because he's the best thing that she'll keep so far out of her life. The bridge itself is another highlight in terms of her songwriting. Last but not least is So American, her very first love song. This is the very first love song that Olivia Rodrigo has released legally, not a leak, a proper song that you can access on streaming. I feel like this is historic. Yes, the queen of young heartbreak has finally done a cute, wholesome song about a boyfriend from the UK. It's still pretty self-depreciating, yet very wiser than its years. The usage of So American ties back to her opener, All American Bitch, but he sang it from a loving place, so it kind of completes the whole cycle of Guts. It's sweet that she's in love, and the verses really speak to it. I think that the bridge kills it for me because it captures that feeling of trying to summarize, thinking if it's mutual or not. The way that she sings La 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 Love, you know, I can't do that. Like, I'm not gonna sing on my podcast, but that part where she sings love at the end of the chorus is just addictive to me. I kind of wish we got a music video for this track, though we have gotten some really cute edits to the ship First Prince from the movie Red, White, and Royal Blue, which I have finally kind of come around on. I was a novel reader. I preferred the novel to the movie. I feel like cutting some of the characters out was a mistake, but the edits that I've seen for it are really cute, and this song really does kind of fit that vibe. As a collection of songs, I'd have to give this a 7.7 in that much of it works, but it's very clear why most, barring Obsessed of course, had been left off Guts, which was such a cohesive record the first go around. I feel like deluxe versions tend to be a gimmick nowadays, and in the streaming age at least, to extend an era or to give an era some longevity or to give fans some leaked songs that they had heard before. Deluxe albums used to be a way to just juice the sales in the past. Nowadays, some artists actually just convert it into a new concept or a launching pad for the next era. Doja and Olivia did a pretty good job with theirs. And that wraps up the music section of this podcast. We are now going to talk about things that I watched in the past week. So this week in terms of viewing had been pretty light for me. I had to repeat a few movies, but I actually got the chance to go out to Santa Monica to see The Last Omen early. I was able to attend a pretty cool live Q&A and double screening with the original movie playing right after in 35mm. For you guys who are film nerds, watching things in 35mm is the way to go because the color signature and timing are really accurate to what the filmmakers want you to see. Anyway, The Last Omen itself was a pretty solid movie. I thought that Nell Tiger-Free, British actress, did not know she was British. She plays Sister Margaret, or, well, Margaret, she's not a sister yet. The film has very similar vibes to Immaculate, which I might also discuss on this podcast because I don't think I did one the week that I saw Immaculate. It's very odd that we are getting these two competing movies about nuns. Nuns who are incubating the Antichrist, mind you. I personally thought that The Last Omen was going to be a worse movie until I realized that it had been directed by a woman. I believe her name is Arkasha Stevenson. She directed a few direct-to-video movies in the past, or festival films. She did such a great job with this film. There are so many references to the original movie, which I hadn't seen in a long time. The continuity changes are brave and thrilling. We really just get the origin story to Damien's mother, which is said in the advertising, but the film itself does not frame it that way. There's a whole murder mystery sort of element to it. Spoilers for all of this, by the way. Do not listen to this if you have not seen the movie. But essentially, Margaret comes from America. She visits this area for the nuns. It turns out that there's this culty element of the church that wants to summon the Antichrist because it's the 1970s. Religion is at an all-time low. They're all like, we need someone that the people can fear. So, like, there's this whole element of figuring out exactly who the mother of Damien is going to be. They do this really cool red herring with a character who also has the mark of the devil. I find it odd that there's a genetic experimentation thing to it, and that's something that also is an element of Immaculate. Again, spoilers. If you are spoiled by this, I warned you earlier. But Immaculate was more focused on the pregnancy element of actually incubating evil and the act of being pregnant, whereas like the first Omen, the pregnancy of the movie does not even happen. For most of the movie, like, the person incubating the devil doesn't even know they're pregnant until the very end of the movie, and it's played out in this very horrific fashion. That kind of reminded me of another prequel movie done by 20th Century Studios, Prometheus. Those of you who are familiar with Noomi Rapace's scene with the cesarean section, that scene is iconic. I can see its influence in both this movie and Immaculate. I don't think it really matches the quality of the first Omen at all, but at the same time, it's a really cool dovetail. There's a lot of retconning. One of the biggest retcons for me is that it does undo one of the biggest scares in the original movie, which played right after, so I was able to review the films back to back. In the original, they go to look for the mother's grave and they discover that it's a jackal. The first Omen reveals that the jackal is not the mother of Damien, but rather it's Margaret. Spoilers, it's Nell Tiger-Free. I mean, it's in the trailer, guys. Come on. So on Letterboxd, I said that Nell Tiger-Free anchors this very visceral, shockingly graphic retcon to the classic. There are distinct homages visually and sonically to the original, but this is very much its own beast. Arkasha Stevenson creates sharp, vivid images. Even a demon's dick. You get to see a demon's dick. This movie is distributed by Disney. 20th Century Fox has been killing it at reviving older properties between Prey and this. I can only imagine how cool the upcoming Alien Romulus will be. But between this and Immaculate, you know, if you're a lapsed Catholic like I am, you're going to have a time of your life. You can really tell that they shot this on film, which is a nice element of it. I did like the fact that this movie did not rely on jump scares too much. I think the horror is realizing certain elements of the scene are shifted. It does play more of a mystery rather than a straight up horror film. So if you're expecting something to really scare the living daylights out of you, this is not it. Immaculate, on the other hand, is pretty similar in that sense, but instead, you know, Sydney Sweeney is pregnant for reasons unknown, and you kind of follow her throughout the entire movie, and you uncover the nuns are not who they say they are. There's a less religious sort of energy to Immaculate, I'd say. It's still pretty critical of the church, but it's not supernatural. There is no supernatural elements to Immaculate as far as I know. Immaculate plays more or less like the movie Splice by Vincenzo Natali. It plays more like Jurassic Park. In that the twist, spoilers again, you know, if you're at this point of the video, spoilers, the father of her is genetically recombed versions of Jesus Christ's genes as found on one of the nails that they used to crucify him. Allegedly. Apparently, the priest who has spearheaded the project doesn't even know where the nail came from. He just assumed it's from Jerusalem. I was able to attend 2 different screenings, one where the director did a really cool Q&A, and another where Sydney Sweeney herself came down to grace us with her beautiful presence. Sydney Sweeney herself is really good in this movie. I think that it's amazing that she went out of her way to dig up this project that has been kicking it for roughly 10 years. Apparently the script was written 18 years ago, according to the writer. She had actually auditioned for the project back when she was 18. She ended up liking the script a lot, found the director and the writer, and, got it running when she had the ability to make her own movies. She's been a star lately with Anyone But You, and I think of all the Euphoria people aside from Zendaya, I think she's actually the most successful. I feel like the promo for the film has been pretty cool. She actually showed this movie to priests, and they were horrified. I'd say that it's not necessarily a better movie than The Last Omen in that its construction can be a little bit messy, but I found it a tighter film. The Last Omen, I believe, bleeds closer to 2 hours. Immaculate is just straight up, like, every minute counts because it's neon. They're not Disney. They don't have unlimited money, so they're pretty smart with the shots. Which is really funny because, there was a deleted scene on Immaculate, according to the director, that he called where there was a hand coming out of, the vagina. That's something that showed up in The Last Omen that they had to cut from Immaculate. Okay, so moving on, the other movie that I was able to watch just on Thursday, I'm recording this on Friday, so I saw it yesterday. Monkey Man, directed, starring Dev Patel. Wonderful movie, very visceral. I just had a few issues with the pacing, but the action is excellent. It really is Indian John Wick. There's some really cool political commentary in it that I felt kind of dragged the film down a little bit because the film wanted to elevate itself beyond being an action film, and in the process detracts from how tight and streamlined the movie would have been if they just cut out some plot elements. Netflix themselves had been in charge of the movie, and then they put it in development hell just because of how political it is. They did not want to ruffle feathers with the Indian government because the villain is a stand-in for the right-wing Indian government. Man, I am talking about controversial things. Just now I'm talking in the context of movies. I do not know much about the Catholic Church, India, or the politics of India to make any sort of stance. But yeah, it was a really solid movie. I felt like the ending was a little bit unsatisfying to me, and the pacing at the beginning was just not it for me. But once the movie rips and roars, it rips and roars. Dev Patel was so hot in the movie. I'm just gonna say it outright. I am a thirsty person on my podcast. You guys have heard me thirst over people on here. Dev Patel looked gorgeous in this movie. He's rough and tumble. I think the film is pretty genre savvy in the sense that there's a romantic subplot that's completely shunted over for this man's revenge. Super quick plot summary without really spoiling anything because the movie pretty much tells itself in the trailer. That was one reason why I almost didn't go see it, because the trailer showed the entire movie for me. This is the story of a young boy whose family and life had been taken from him because of land disputes in India over religion and just politics. He goes out and he traces down the people who did it to him, the police chief, the politician that works for the police chief, the woman who runs the real estate company that basically is trying to force people out so that the government can develop buildings and make money. He basically goes out and he does a revenge thing. He's also a fighter, which is where the title comes from. The title itself, Monkey Man, references the Ramayana, something that I actually studied in college, my first semester. It's a very classic story. As a boy, the main character listened to the myth of the Monkey Man himself, and he actually adopts him as a persona and goes through his entire journey metaphorically. I recommend that you guys go see it in a theater. This was supposed to be dumped on streaming by Netflix, as I mentioned earlier, but Netflix pulled back on the project. Jordan Peele himself had actually picked up the movie. He got Universal to distribute it. If you want to support mid-budget action movies, this is the one to go see. Dev Patel, though, seriously, he is very talented behind the camera, on the camera. The stunts were really well done. The POV shots It's a very dynamic movie. I think it might be one of my favorite movies this year. The last time I was this excited over an action movie was recently when I got to see Kill Bill in 35mm at the New Beverly in December. I had chills at some moments. Just a good watch. Go see it. I've also rewatched the first 2 Terminator movies, and can I say Sarah Connor is mother? With the advent of AI essentially ruining the world, but in the way that you would not expect it to. Like, we're not being defeated by robots. We're being defeated by greedy people who do not want to pay workers the wages that they deserve. James Cameron is just so good at what he does. Terminator 1 itself is a really poignant love story hidden in a horror film. I think that the chintzy kind of like special effects for the endoskeleton were pretty well done for the time being. Terminator 2 is just a classic sequel. It is just what an action movie should be. I think every film should try to emulate its structure, pacing, not necessarily its tone. I just really like classic old movies. I think they're really cool. I think that Linda Hamilton, again, stand out of the movie, but Cameron's writing, especially his Mary Shelley-esque rant for Sarah Connor in movie 2, where she basically goes off about how man only knows how to destroy things because they don't know how to procreate or create life of their own or carry a child, was really cool. TV-wise, I have not seen anything I really liked recently. I did notice, though, that the Avatar The Last Airbender showrunner has quit, so I think maybe the show will improve, or maybe the tone will be different. I have no clue. That's just kind of a mess that I will disentangle when seasons 2 and 3 come out, if they ever come out. I really don't have much to talk about beyond that, so I'm just going to end the podcast right here. But thank you guys so much for tuning in to this podcast. I know I've been inconsistent with the release times. I've just been really busy with my own life and projects, but I am really grateful whenever you guys listen. A quick shout out to my members. Thank you so much for supporting my channel. And a big shout out to my subscribers. Thank you for tuning into every single video if you can make it. The last 2 Beyonce videos have been very rewarding to make. I cannot wait to deep dive further into her career. I might have another Taylor video for you guys. It's going to be a surprise. I will work on it and see if I can make the deadline that I made for myself. If not, I will post it sometime next week. I'm really excited about Tortured Poets. I hope that it lives up to the hype that people have been giving it. And I hope to see you next video or next podcast, whichever one comes first.